I serve as the vice chair of the Clayton County Board of Commissioners.
Okay, perfect. So let me ask you the first question here is, you reached out to the GBI saying you had proof that Mr. Turner actually staged the letter that threatened himself and Miss Holloway. Can you talk to me about what you told the GBI and also what the proof was?
I'm glad you asked that question. In actuality, I spoke to the GBI only briefly after putting two and two together. So if I may go back really quickly, it was in June or July that we actually noticed that there was some possible misuse of county funds. And as you know, the state and the federal government requires for any elected official that if they see the misuse of federal dollars or county funds or state funds, then we're to report that. Now, we have to report it individually. That's our responsibility and our oath of office that we take. But in this case, it was a unanimous decision outside of the chairman's vote to have an audit done on those said funds. Unfortunately, up until today's date, that audit information has not been returned to the Board of Commissioners, which also is extremely suspicious. And on that evening, when we made that vote, there was a question about misuse of county funds for certain college degrees that are not approved by our board as well. So with that being stated, I have been dealing with concerns for our safety for a while. And that particular night, I realized we needed extra security. So I took it upon myself to actually ask the sheriff's office at that time to give us security. Basically the women of the board, which were the majority of the vote at that particular time. And we did get that security. And it wasn't until we requested the security as well as requested the audit that now all of a sudden this letter comes out of nowhere. And that was of concern to me and for our safety.
So you're saying like you were worried about your safety because of this unanimous vote, and you were worried about what would happen because of it?
Yes, because actually the board, the women of the board have been dealing with safety concerns for years, of which are well documented in email. And I went through every channel that's allotted to us to be able to have security in place so that we could simply do our job that we elected to do, but without any type of intimidation or unnecessary threats. And unfortunately, nothing was done about it. And so at that point, we didn't have any recourse of action but to follow the state statute and ask for the current, at that time, the sheriff's office to provide us with security moving forward. And it wasn't until then that the chairman all of a sudden asked that he not allow us to have the security. And when he could not stop that security from protecting us, now this letter came out with a plan of action that is well documented, which excluded our security that we'd asked for. And again, but unfortunately, he was not successful in doing so because the state clearly states that the sheriff's office of any county is over the security of all county buildings. And once I saw that, as well as I saw that there was some misinformation provided, which is well documented, over incidents that did not occur, that really heightened my level of sensitivity to the fact that this letter was possibly staged.
So you're saying at first it was kind of the women that asked for the security, and then now all of a sudden Mr. Turner needed that security as well because he was also receiving threats. Is that what you're saying?
According to him, that threat letter was not sent to him until after he tried his best to keep us from having security. Yes, that is exactly it. And again, it's well documented because it was very important for me to make sure that I followed the law as outlined so that the majority of the board or the board itself can operate without having any type of level of unnecessary threats.
So once he said that he received this letter allegedly threatening him, the GBI investigated, and you sent me some emails showing that you told them you had proof that it was actually Mr. Turner who essentially, I guess, forged the letters and sent those fake threats to himself. What was this proof? And then what was the GBI's response?
Well, I'll start with based upon what I just shared with you. It looked and resembled a lot like the boy who cried wolf. And so at that point, prior to the GBI coming to my house and questioning me, I sent an email to those that were a part of the head of the GBI, as well as copied the entire board, and even reported it to the district attorney of our county. And the information I provided them was the timing, as I just stated to you, in terms of the suspiciousness, and it looked like the boy who cried wolf. B, the fact that a little bit later, I noticed that there was some anonymous emails going out to the public, and you could see the top of the screen of the computer. And interestingly enough, that top of the screen of the computer that I sent an email to the GBI showed that it had to be a high level operations manager. And there are only a few people within our county that have that type of access. And I can tell you this, it would not be necessarily an administrative assistant. It would be the one that is over said operations. And you could see that at the top. Not only did I notify the GBI, but I also sent it to our chief of police, our sheriff's office, and again, our district attorney, because I really had concerns for our safety as board members. And we just, were doing our best to try to do our job. And again, it really looked like the boy who cried wolf.
So let me make sure I get this straight. So in terms of the screenshots of this message that was sent out, the anonymous message, you're saying there was something at the very top that indicated it had to be someone within the county who would have had access to these privileged materials. Are you then saying it must have been Mr. Turner?
I will say this, I put everything that I thought and I continue to think in that particular email. And I was hoping the GBI would confiscate computers so that they can take a look at it. And unfortunately, I don't believe that they've done so. Based upon what I now know, the warrants to be issued for, it tells me that they must not have done so. That is of great concern to me. And I do need to add this point. What's suspicious to me as well and what's continuing to be suspicious is that, as we all know, unfortunately, I guess Dr. Holloway was terminated, but none of the board was notified of her termination. I found out through other channels. And what's interesting is I confirmed her termination date as of the 25th of January, but we got subsequent emails from the same email that she no longer would have access to. So that also raises concerns and further confirms that the GBI really needs to go back and look at those computers that are in the office and who has access to those computers at that particular time.
What if Mr. Turner just said he fired Ms. Holloway because she had done something wrong? Was the timing still different on that?
It's very suspicious on it, simply because regardless of somebody doing something wrong, the bottom line is, as you saw in the emails that I sent, there were numerous concerns for our safety over a period of time. And it would be hard for me to believe that somebody that is working for someone that is over operations would be acting on their own and alone. That is of great concern to me.
Let me ask you, so I emailed the GBI basically reminding them that you had provided what you feel like is proof and the timeline. I didn't get a response back from the GBI at all about where the investigation was at, whether Mr. Turner is a potential person of interest. How do you feel about the fact that, you're bringing something to the attention of the authorities? Do you feel like your claims were not taken seriously?
Most definitely. And I have to address this, especially as a woman. I do feel like our concerns were not taken seriously. We notified, again, every outlet that is available to us, not just as elected officials, but as citizens. And it's very disheartening that that we don't feel protected. It's very disheartening. So I can definitely say that it's something else they need to look into. The current GBI director was our previous chief of police, and he's good friends. Unfortunately, I got to tell you, with our chairman, it's on record. And so, I don't mince my words when I say that I had concerns for years for my safety and the safety of board members under this current administration. And yes, it was ignored because if there was going to be an extensive investigation done, then computers would have been pulled, data would have been collected. So unfortunately, I have to say that we do feel ignored. We did not feel that anything would come out of it. And it's extremely suspicious that now all of a sudden it's pinned on someone that obviously would be acting under the directive of the chairman of the county.
So I reached out to Mr. Turner. He sent me a pretty long statement, essentially saying he's not responsible. He's denying the whole thing. Have you spoken to him since this ordeal, and what do you feel about his denial of these claims?
Well, I still say that it's very reminiscent of the boy who cried wolf. And that's one of the things in that story that sticks out to me, because the boy who cried wolf stuck to their story the entire time. But unfortunately, as you see, the timing of the information that I provided to the GBI, and it was unrequested, it was something that I just noticed intuitively in terms of the timing of it, and sent it over to them and made them aware, as well as our DA and the entire board. But yet and still, people can deny what they want to deny, but I've learned in life that the facts speak for themselves. And that information is time date stamped.
Okay, that is it for me. Was there anything else you want to clarify or put on record and let viewers know that I forgot to ask you, or you would like this?
Yes, there is. And also, okay, one other note to make is that there were a series of emails that began earlier last year. And those series of emails were coming from an anonymous person, but it was information that only those on our board would have been aware of. And that too brought up the suspicion. And again, it just really looked like the boy who cried wolf. Outside of that, on record, again, I in particular, who love to serve this county, absolutely love serving this county, have had to deal with threats on my life for the past over 2 years that have gone ignored by our judicial system, as well as by the authorities. And so I believe that if we are taken seriously, as we should be, because to serve does not mean we negate our rights to safety, then I believe if it would have been paid attention to earlier, we may not even be here at this point.
Okay, I am all set. Let me go ahead and stop recording.